Holy shit, this game is good.
What the hell is this?
ULTRAKILL is one of those boomer shooters that people keep making, but unlike most, it's a game that just oozes style, from the snappy animations to the transitions in UI. Even the voice acting and cutscenes, while minimal, are just so fitting and well stylized.
Insignificant.
Yeah.
This is not over!
I'm gonna get the review part of this out of the way early, and just tell you guys that I cannot recommend this game enough. It's a fantastic indie game where everything is so concise and honed to perfection that I genuinely have a hard time finding criticisms for it. Which is all the more impressive considering this game is mainly made by one person. But a game with this level of polish, with as few people working on it, shouldn't exist. The only other notable example of something like this that I can think of in recent years is Undertale. Before I ramble too much, I'll end the intro with this. Play this fucking game if you haven't. It really does deserve all of the praise it gets. The game, as previously mentioned, takes a minimalistic approach to its storytelling. There's some cutscenes and lore entries, but much like another game series that I absolutely love, most things are told to the player through environmental storytelling. Upon starting it though, it does give you a scant few words to get you going. Mankind is dead, blood is fuel, and hell is full, which I think is just the coolest summary of anything ever. Since you don't get more story beats until later on, I'll come back to this. The quiet opening does serve as a tutorial to teach you the ropes for the gameplay. Firstly, you will learn how to invoke your inner white boy and punch holes in walls. You find out how to heal from the blood of your enemies. And finally, much like how Americans solve problems, you get a gun. The game proceeds to turn the action from a 1 up to a 10 almost immediately, as it, much like a bird to its offspring, tosses you into the fray of combat, so you better learn to fly real quick. Speaking of flying, the movement in this game is positively exhilarating. The early levels teach you about the dash, which gives you iframes, the wall jump and ground pound, which, just like that fun game starring Chris Pratt,
It's a me.
are great tools for movement and seamlessly flow into the combat. You get even more options later, but I'll save that for when I cover the second act. Moving on from there, you gradually fight more and more difficult and varied enemies, leading to mini-bosses, some of which take the Dark Souls route where something you fought as a boss earlier becomes a common enemy later, which I think I just really like anything that reminds me of Dark Souls. These fights typically unlock different weapons or other progression tools, and I think that's a really neat way to create a sense of progression and shake up the gameplay in a fun and fair manner. The additions to your arsenal all have different uses and situations in which they're good, and no weapon feels power crept by others, and that's a rare thing in these types of games. Typically your starting pistol falls off late game, but in ULTRAKILL it's just as good later as it is in the beginning. In addition to this, you can purchase alternate fire modes and other upgrades to your equipment between levels that further enhance the scope of the combat. The additions to your arsenal increase your strength, but the game absolutely keeps pace with you, gradually ramping up the difficulty to an insane level, and not just because I'm bad at video games, but because the game is genuinely difficult, and not in an unfair cheese kind of way, like some games. The difficulty makes every victory feel earned, and creates a smooth dance between the movement and the shooting, if the dance was a mosh pit and you were directly in the middle of it. Man, with me talking about the difficulty, you'd think I'm one of those god-awful games journalists preaching about how everything should have an easy mode. Because in the year of our Lord 2023, everything is the Dark Souls of insert game genre here. Except I'm not a pussy, and I welcome the challenge. I enjoy watching V2 grind my balls into a paste several times. Speaking of Dark Souls, you've got a parry button. However, it's the most Chad way to parry things. You literally punch the bullets, among other things, back at them. And while the timing can take a bit to get used to, it really is one of the most satisfying feats to pull off. Visuals. ULTRAKILL goes for the retro aesthetic, and it absolutely nails it. I've probably never seen pixelated gore and blood look so cool. And you can take almost any bit from any of the levels, and it's pure pixel art. Each layer of hell has a unique feel and style of its own, my favorite being Lust. Lust is an extremely vertical level, and the color palette being primarily hues of purples and pinks gives it an almost synthwave aesthetic. And the ruins of what appears to be a city is just the cherry on top for visual storytelling, and I'm a sucker for that. The superb visuals extends to the enemy design as well. The common enemies are either fleshy hellspawns, fellow robots, and even biblically accurate angels. The game also has floaty blue ab ladies, so it's objectively better than anything that came out this whole decade. They're also unique and cool, but the only downside being if you stop to admire them for too long, they will kill you. Music. Much like the visuals, the music changes between layers and even levels, and each is extremely fitting and goes hand in hand with the visuals perfectly. Most of the music has also been entirely composed by Hakita himself, further adding to how absolutely insane and talented this man is. The soundtrack has to be as fast-paced as the gameplay, and most of the time that's exactly how it is, minus the few parts of the game where it reels back the action and is more reflective in nature. I'm not even going to pretend I know much about music theory, but this shit is insane. Fun fact, it even does the cool effect where it muffles the music when you're underwater. There's also a few songs in the game that are references to things. However, I can't for the life of me figure out what they could be. Now is the point where I delve back into the story, so if you don't want spoilers, it's best to skip ahead to the ending. Throughout your jog through hell, you can loosely piece together that humanity game-ended themselves after robots that they built to fight in a massive war turned on them and drove them to extinction. You're V1, the first and only blood-fueled robot created as a war machine in order to fight in this war. And you, being the thirsty bitch you are, descend into hell to harvest blood from the various residents. Along the way, you run into fellow robots, such as V2, which you kill.
Come on over here! Come on, coward! Coward! I know that I want to punch you in the nose. Don't beat your goddamn ass, you son of a bitch! We're gonna defeat this anti-human scum! We're gonna wreck their world!
The previous King of Lust, King Minos, and even Gabriel, an angel and the Judge of Hell. Anyway, you kick his ass, he throws a little tantrum, and then dips back out to heaven, and is subsequently scolded by the council and his powers are taken away because he lost a fight to a barely sentient Roomba. And they took that personally as an insult to God, so they gave him 24 hours to kill you and rectify this insult or he dies. And that is the end of Act 1 of the game. In Act 2, you continue to delve into hell. You get a really cool grappling hook. You find out through some lore entries that the River Styx has become a literal ocean, so naturally where do you go from there? Well, of course, you dredge the Titanic from the depths and fight the ferryman in order to proceed. You find and kill a big fish.
Holy Jesus! What the fuck is that?
And finally, you jump into a hole in the ocean, which leads you to the most hell-looking part of hell. These last few levels are a good final challenge, because it'll test all of the skills that you've acquired up until now by sending some of the absolute hardest enemies in the game at you in very rapid succession. And then finally, to top it off, you find Gabriel again. You guys fight, and after many, many deaths, you beat him a second time. This fight is a really good test of your reflexes. I think I died probably 20 times, and that's just on the normal difficulty. So anyway, you beat him, and he acknowledges your skill, and dips out again. It's revealed that he can't actually beat you, because God himself has peaced out, and the council has been hiding it, content to continue to rule over heaven and hell. So he does the completely rational thing, and murders them all. God, this game is so cool. And that is where the game ends at the time of this recording. There's a couple secret bosses and some other things I haven't touched on, but I don't want to ruin the whole game for you because you really should go play it now. I'm serious, go play it right now. Seriously, go play the game now. It's definitely worth your time. I'll be here when you get back. That unfortunately brings me to the ending. since I've just spent the last indeterminate amount of time sucking this game's gun barrel, you can probably tell that I absolutely loved it. Since it's still in development at the time of me writing this script, I obviously can't break down the whole game, but based on what's currently released, I can say with confidence that the rest of it will probably be as outstanding as the first 2 parts. There was an interview with Hikita, and he stated, and I quote, "There's no definitive roadmap or deadline. It'll be released when it's done," end quote. And I just think that's a great way to do it. That design ethos reminds me of a quote from the absolute golden boy himself, Shigeru Miyamoto, where a delayed game will eventually be good, but a rushed game will be forever bad. And despite Nintendo's sometimes interesting business practices, for the most part they hold true to that ethos, and I just respect the hell out of that, honestly. Oftentimes nowadays, companies will put out half-baked garbage and fill in the cracks with microtransactions or DLC. This is clearly not that. ULTRAKILL feels like a passion project. It's something with so much heart and soul put into it, and it really is polished to a mere shine in terms of quality that it raises the bar for gaming as a whole, in my opinion. It's indie games like this that fill me with hope for the future of gaming as a medium. I personally am very cynical in outlook for most AAA games since they just seem to have lost their heart and passion for gaming, and this certainly does not. I've got a lot of hot takes and strong feelings about gaming as a whole, but perhaps I'll save that for a future video at some point. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching. I do appreciate any support, all likes, subscribes, etc. If you feel like showing this video to your friends, that would be pretty poggers, and if you don't have friends, first of all, I'm very sorry, Papa Meaty will be your friend. And secondly, kidnap the local homeless populace, strap them to a chair like that bit from Black Ops, and make them watch my videos. I assure you that's totally legally and morally correct. Anyway, have a good one, and I'll see you next time.